Hey everyone, welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. We have some leaks coming from a forum user on the midenginecorvetteforum.com talking about and even confirming some previous rumors. So let's talk about it. Alright guys, so in my previous video, which you can actually check out by clicking right up here to the top right of this video, we talked about the member on the midenginecorvetteforum.com giving us some more insight into the way the side scoop and other things on the Corvette C8 were going to look. Well, he's made another post and clarified some of the information we talked about. So basically, what we're dealing with here is the member C8UR911 on the midenginecorvetteforum.com claims to have inside knowledge on some of the C8 happenings. Like I said in my previous video, some of this was already discussed. I'm not going to go over that again, considering I already talked about it previously, but he has clarified some of the aspects and touched more on some of the more important information. He did post on the midenginecorvetteforum.com on May 3rd and stated that he's going to be ducking out of the forum after that date. He says, quote unquote, "This will be my last post in this thread. Everything stated is straight from a source in a privileged situation. These are not guesses. That's it." Now, he seems to be pretty certain of all this information, and honestly, a lot of what he discussed sounds a lot like things we've heard in the past, and it does kind of fit in with other things that we've seen as well. As always, you want to take any of these rumors with a grain of salt, but there's a good bit of the stuff he says that leads me to believe this is true, and we are going to likely see a lot of this information popping up officially from GM very soon. One of the other forum members decided to take all of the information he had posted and consolidate it into one single post. I'm going to run through all of the different things that that particular forum member consolidated just to let you guys know. So first we start with the side scoop. The side intake design is completely fake as we see it now. That is, the weird triangular panel on the top of the door is completely fake. And that includes both pieces, not just the piece at the top, which was something we already assumed was fake. The piece that extends onto the door is small and barely extends to the door at all in reality. The overall shape is almost identical to the vent shape on the Gen 5 Dodge Viper. Again, literally almost identical to that particular shape. None of the renderings are even close with respect to the intake design. The only accurate aspect of any of the renderings we're seeing today is the front and rear bumpers. Basically, forget the renderings, the car looks different, which this is definitely something I've talked about multiple times in previous videos. I had a lot of good feeling that GM was purposely creating a fake shape underneath that zebra wrap to really fool us. He is basically confirming that he has someone who is close to the source and has told him none of these are even close. He says that that triangular piece at the top of the door is not going to be there, and instead there's going to be a square button that pushes into the bodywork that allows you to grab the door, similar to how the handle worked on C3 Corvettes. Now, as far as the Targa top goes, number one, it's going to be retractable. It's going to show the engine in the back, so obviously we're going to have glass over top of the engine like I talked about in a previous video as well. There will be a hard top convertible option offered. The power mechanism that retracts the Targa top or the hard convertible top is apparently very similar between the two, so they share parts. The Targa top will store between the engine and the firewall. You cannot see it from the outside of the car, even though you will be able to see the engine bay. When you activate the top, the B pillar lifts up out of the way, and the Targa top lifts up and slides right in vertically in a compartment before the firewall. Now, for the convertible, the rear window can retract up and down while the top is up or down. The engine will not be visible, but does have extra venting back there to keep the engine cool. The main attraction of the convertible is that it has a flat rear deck lid and a vertical rear window, so it looks much different than the Targa top cars, even when the Targa is off. This is something else we've talked about in the past with the Spyder style convertibles. It really flattens out the rear end and gives the whole car a much different look. Some of the colors that he knows that are going to be offered are bright purple, bright green, and gold. So those will be the colors in addition to your traditional reds, blacks, stuff like that. He states that the dark red or burgundy color is going away and only the torch red will remain. He goes on to talk about pricing a little bit. The initial launch of the base model C8, which will be called a Stingray, will start at $60,400. It will have 530 horsepower via that LT2, which is a reworked LT1 engine. There will be no additional hood venting. The seats are not Recaro, but they're much nicer than any other Corvette seats, and there will be no manual transmission offering. We've talked about that a couple times in previous videos. It's not the most exciting thing for me. I really am going to miss the manual offering, but I'm holding out hope that the Z06 or ZR1 is going to get a manual. Next, he states the Z06 will be launched. It will start at $85,400. It will have 730 horsepower, twin turbo, dual overhead cam engine. It will have additional venting on the hood. It will also have options for carbon fiber wheels. Now that's amazing. I love that offering on the GT350R, and I think that that's incredible that we would get something like that on this car as well. It's odd to me that if Ford can do it, that no one else really seems to have offered anything like that in a realistically priced car. Now the Z06 offering will also have fenders, hood, and rear deck lid that are all carbon fiber. This is obviously to save weight, but it will also look pretty cool if they give you any kind of exposed carbon fiber option. It will differentiate from the Stingray with more prominent flares over the rear wheels, larger vent openings in the rear bumper, and cutout vents over the front wheels similar to the Gen 5 Dodge Viper ACR and the Porsche GT2 GT3 RS. This is not necessarily groundbreaking because the Z06 does basically the same thing in the 7th generation Corvette over the Stingray by offering a wider body stance to accommodate wider wheels and to give it a little bit of a wider stance on the road to help with better handling and things like that. So as usual, GM is following somewhat of a predictable path with these cars. That's why I have a good feeling a lot of the information that is being mentioned by this particular forum user is pretty credible. Like I said, we're not that far away from an actual release or official GM talk on this car, so we're going to find out very soon. Now, lastly, he goes on to talk about the ZR1, or apparently they are still contemplating calling it just a Zora. He states that GM has not decided fully on the name of this car yet. It's either going to be the ZR1 or just Zora. But the pricing has been set for around $125,800. This puts it very close to the price range of the current ZR1, and this is again something we had talked a lot about, with the pricing of the C8 only being about $5,000 higher than the C7. All of the pricing I'm talking about right now, he has confirmed to be true, and if it is going to fall right into that same pricing as the C7 with the exception of around $3,000 to $5,000. That's fantastic. GM is really going to have a success on their hands if they are able to sell a mid-engine Corvette that performs well and doesn't cost much more than the current C7. He goes on to say that the ZR1 or Zora model will be 830 horsepower, twin turbo, dual overhead cam, which will be the same exact engine as from the Z06 C8, but it will have the extra horsepower from an electric motor. Now again, we've talked about this in the past. The electric motor will likely drive the front wheels, giving the C8 ZR1 a all-wheel drive style function. The ZR1 will have additional hood venting just like the Z06 does, but he does go on to say that apparently the all-wheel drive function of the car is still being discussed. GM has not decided whether or not they want to make it all-wheel drive or make just the rear wheels driven by the electric motor and the gas-powered engine in the rear. The ZR1 will apparently show up in year 4 of the C8 running, which is pretty similar to the way that the C7 was introduced. We got the ZR1 was actually about 5 years later, but the ZR1 always comes last, and it typically takes a little longer for the ZR1 to come out over when the Z06 will come out. If they follow the same kind of release pattern as they did with the C7, we're going to get the Stingray first, the Z06 probably a year later, and now looking at this, probably the ZR1 3 years after the base model Stingray is introduced. The active aerodynamics are only going to be available on the ZR1. This is surprising to me because I thought for sure GM would offer this on the Z06 and then an even more detailed version of it on the ZR1. But he is saying straight up, no active aero whatsoever on the Z06. It's only going to be on the ZR1. Now he does also go on to say that the active aero, the electric motor, and literally the badging saying Zora or ZR1 will be the only differences between the ZR1 and the Z06. So no differences in wheel size, brake size, etc. It's literally just those 3 items. Now that's still a huge difference, because if the ZR1 gets the active aero where the Z06 doesn't, it's still going to give that ZR1 a huge edge, and I can't wait to see what this car is going to be capable of. Now, like I said, as usual, we want to take all of this with a grain of salt, because it is just a forum member posting a he said, she said type situation. It is, in fact, a lot of information that kind of aligns with some of the information we've heard before and some of the rumors we've seen so far, as well as even some of the leaks that have come out. So while I say take it with a grain of salt, I feel like a lot of this stuff is likely to be quite true. We are going to find out very soon, and I can't wait to see the unveiling of this car. It's going to be something else. Now, lastly, we have gotten some pictures of what looks to be a third rim style for this car. I'll put the first one here. The second one here. And now the third one here. Obviously, we have 2 different fairly black styles, and then the third one is definitely straight up silver. On the leaked option list for this car, we saw a noticeable missing chrome option. So the fact that we've seen these 3 styles so far tells me, again, these are probably the styles we're getting. That's semi-disappointing, because honestly, I'm not in love with any of them, and hopefully we get something different come July 18th. Now that's going to do it for today's video, guys. If you liked what you saw, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the comment section down below. And as always, I would love to have you as part of the Horsepower Obsessed community, so please subscribe if you haven't yet. I'll catch you guys in the next one.